Joining us on the telephone this morning is State Senator Don White, and it's good to have him on the air with us. Good morning.
Morning, Todd. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful, and it's good to have you with us today because I wanted to touch on this topic. I know this has been something that you have addressed in recent years, school violence and protecting our students in the schools, and, of course, the debate over whether to arm students, or not students, but to arm teachers and arm security guards. That whole issue is certainly something that's being revisited all across our nation today. Just a couple of years ago, you sponsored legislation that would allow a school district to choose whether or not to arm students. And so I know this is a very special issue for you.
Yes, it has been. It's been a long journey. I'll tell you the truth. When I first I was approached by it by a teacher here at Indiana School District, Mark Zelenkus. In fact, he'd be worthy of an interview for sure. And he came to me with the idea, and he went through all this intensive training that he went through out in Ohio. And initially I thought I didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't really get into the issue much, and I thought it was a little over the top. But then I was down in Harrisburg back in 2012 when I got a phone call from Governor Corbett, and he told me about the incident at Franklin Regional High School, which of all the 23 school districts I represent in the 41st district, that would have been the last one that I expected anything like that to happen. And that young man went in with two regular kitchen knives and ran through the building, stabbed 21 people. They had a facilities manager there, a retired city policeman, but he had no gun. And this kid did all this damage in a matter of 4.5 minutes. And on the way home, and after seeing they preserved the crime scene for us, the governor and I got to meet with the U.S. Attorney, Dave Hickton, and the FBI, state police, local police. And viewing that crime scene was terrifying. It looked like a butcher shop. And on the way home, back to Indiana, I started thinking, like, he did all this damage with police 2.5 minutes away. He did this in 4.5 minutes. What about my schools up in the northern part of the county? The Purchase Lines, the Penns Manors. Those schools are united that have no real local police protection. It would take the state police from the barracks here south of town anywhere from 30 to 35, 40 minutes to respond. So that's when it started in my head thinking, these rural schools are sitting ducks for any coward that would want to cause mayhem like has happened so many times. And so I came back and I talked to Mark Moore, better understood the training he went through. We talked about the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio basically has the same bill that I'm proposing for Pennsylvania. Initially, they had maybe 100 out of 600 plus school districts sign up for it. Now they're up to 250. And those schools that have imposed this, and it varies, there's a lot of leeway that school districts have as to how to set it up. Some of the schools have armed teachers right in the rooms. Others have a community safe type area that where a handprint will open up the safe. But when you look at it, look at Florida. Now, I just read the paper this morning that the governor is going to sign a bill that, and I don't know all the details, but it's going to permit arms, whether it be trained police officers or teachers, in the classroom in Florida. And all the parents of the 17 kids killed down there highly endorse it. So between that and Sandy Hook and things that's awfully hard for people of my generation to identify with, I think the best reason for this, and Ohio is a good example, is it'll be a deterrent to these cowards. They don't want to go into a school where they think somebody might be shooting back.
Yeah.
They don't want that. They want to go into that virgin territory where no one is there to oppose them, so they can get their 15 minutes of fame.
Senator,
yeah.
Your legislation does leave it up to the school districts to make that decision as to whether or not to arm teachers, and you did that.
Oh, yes.
You did that with a purpose, didn't you?
Right. It's a May bill, and I know it doesn't. In Philadelphia, for example, I visited public schools in Philadelphia years ago, and they had at that time bars on the windows, metal detectors at the doors, police roaming the halls. The response time was zero. I mean, they were there. They were on scene. They carried weapons. So it doesn't apply to Philadelphia. But there are a lot of rural areas in this Commonwealth that, once again, it's not a solution at all. I mean, better mental health understanding and some of the laws I think Florida's going to put in regards to anybody under the age of 21 not being able to purchase a weapon. There are a lot of things we can do. This is certainly no silver bullets. At the same time, I think the teachers have a right to protect those kids they love and protect themselves. And in Florida, we had 3 teachers killed. All 3 teachers tried to shield their kids and were murdered. They had nothing to do, no alternative. They are truly, the teachers are the first responders in these instances. They are the first responders. I'm going to continue to push for it, and if the people want to understand the intense training that I'm talking about they go through, I would suggest, Todd, you call Mark Zelenkus. He loves to talk about the subject. He's much more knowledgeable about it than I am.
No, we'll certainly do that. Since the shootings a couple of weeks ago, have you had more people sort of come around to your side of the argument in regards to your bill?
It's been mixed. I've talked to a lot of radio stations and newspaper people throughout the Commonwealth over the last couple of weeks. And my bill's getting a lot more attention. Am I getting people jumping on the bandwagon? Not necessarily. But once again, I think a lot of people didn't understand the bill. I had people that literally thought I was going to have teachers roaming up and down the halls with shotguns over their arms.
Mm.
Now, that's not what this is all about. This is about volunteers stepping forward. And the last time I met with Mark, he brought in 5 or 6 teachers, a couple females, that were interested in seeing this through, and just give the schools, we're all about local decisions, local control. Well, that's all this bill is. It's a May bill. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some schools that would like to consider it. And I'm 100% in agreement with Mark that we need to give our teachers the right to protect themselves and their students.
Senator Don White with us here on Indiana in the Morning. Senator, in the closing moments, you, of course, make a wonderful point about the distance that our state police must travel in order to get to some of the more remote districts here in Indiana County. And that's just coming from the barracks. If they're coming from a more distant point somewhere else in Indiana County, it could be even longer. You've had conversations, I'm sure, with school administrators in those districts. What do they say are some of the measures that can be taken to protect their students?
Well, I think they're looking at a variety of things, and I think they have to. I think the mental health issue is obviously key. I mean, there were this example of this coward down in Florida. I mean, he left a trail that was pretty evident. I mean, we really missed the boat there. That guy should have been apprehended long before he had an opportunity to do what he did with all his posts on social media. So the mental health aspect, the teachers, administrators, I haven't had a lot of people jumping on my bandwagon, but I've also had people who are interested in would like to discuss it further and see how it will apply. And it would be, they have to go through the licensing program for the carry permits. We have to go through the state police. I mean, that's part of the bill. I think there are a lot of schools that don't want to bring attention to themselves, but I keep falling back to Ohio. Those schools, those 250 schools out of 600 plus that have it, haven't had one incident. Not one.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with the deterrent of knowing that somewhere in that building that these cowards are going to rampage, there could be somebody firing back.
Well, it's at the top of the agenda all across Pennsylvania and the nation right now, the issue of protecting our students in our schools. Senator, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning.
Sure thing, Todd. Always good to talk to you.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
There's Senator Don White with us here this morning.